So here we are with Russell Baer, an Army Ranger during the Iraq War when Pat Tillman was there. You were a member of his team. Would you call it a platoon or a squadron?
We were in the same platoon.
And you were there the day he died.
Yes.
And you came back with his body, and that's when this whole cover-up came about that the family only gradually learned about, and then 5 weeks later there was the press conference from the Army saying he had not died in this fantastic story, charging up the hill, killing Taliban people, but by friendly fire. And that story is being told in this documentary called The TILLMAN Story.
That's right.
And how did you get involved with, I guess, this movie then, and the family?
The family asked me to do the movie. And that's how we met the filmmakers and participated.
So, how did you meet Pat Tillman? Were you in this Rangers squadron already, and he came in with his brother Kevin?
I joined before Pat and Kevin joined, and I'd already been in and done a deployment to Afghanistan, and was there when they arrived.
And what was your first impression?
My first impression was it was great. You know, he wasn't at all exactly what I expected. I expected some meathead, and he was this incredibly non-egotistical, articulate, well-spoken, just bright individual who had this certain magnetism to him.
You know, for me, watching the movie, it's just hard to think of him in kind of human terms. He looks like something out of a Greek legend, one of the Hercules or something. He's so massive. And I guess, maybe there are a lot of big guys in the Army. We hear about how the smallest guy in the squadron he befriended and sort of watched out for him. What did you think about him just physically, that size? I mean...
He was a big guy. He was a big, powerful guy, The funny thing is like the first time I saw him, I was upstairs in our barracks looking down at the new guys arriving with all their bags, these big, huge duffel bags, and those are heavy, I kind of lugged those around. He was carrying around like they were like two big marshmallows. I was like, wow, that's a big guy.
Yeah.
He was a big guy.
And people didn't treat him like a celebrity then. They didn't resent his celebrity.
Well,
the people that worked with him.
I think there was a little bit of animosity for the people who didn't really know him. I think coming in as a new guy, you're pretty much you're a new guy. You're a private. You're really nothing special. And they treated him like he was nothing really special. But there was at times, I would catch Pat often, being deployed talking at length with like colonels and majors, and they typically don't talk to privates or specialists. So, there was that there was a sense of him that he could almost break down the rank barrier at times.
Like a movie star was in your midst.
Right. Well, not just something larger than life, and I think he attracted, all kinds of people in the military towards him.
Now, when this horrible tragedy happened, and he wasn't the only person killed that day, there was an Afghanistan member of the squad who was in American uniform who was first killed. I guess 8 bullets through him.
Right.
When and his brother Kevin was brought in and told Pat Tillman was dead. And I guess he freaked out, but he was told that he was killed by the Taliban. You were told to go back with the body back to the United States, and you were specifically told at that point, do not say anything if you value your career.
They didn't really threaten me. They essentially asked what I knew. I told them what I knew. I knew there was a very, very high potential that he was killed by our guys, but I also saw that there was enemy rounds coming in and around us even before our guys started shooting at us. So there was that factor as well. Was he killed by friendly fire? Was he killed by the bad guys? The other very, very disturbing thing for me was knowing that Kevin was in the part of the element that was shooting at us. So I didn't even know at that point whether or not Kevin had actually played a role in killing his brother. So all these things were still in the air. I didn't have the definitive answer, and I was happy to not really say anything because it was just so heavy and just scary to even think about, the possibilities.
But then I read, Russell, that once you were back in the United States, you refused for 3 weeks to return to.
It wasn't that long, but it was long enough to be punished for it.
And what was your motivation there?
I really, when the shock started to slowly kind of simmer down, I really started to kind of go over the events of the day, and it didn't make any sense to me, and I really kind of felt betrayed, in a way. It's you grow up in the military learning to trust all these guys. They're closer than family, and then to have them shoot at you, it's just like, when it came down to breaking down the situation, it was just the most absurd thing that happened. It shouldn't have happened, and I just felt betrayed, and I didn't want to return.
But you did. Did you? And were you punished for this, or did they say you were under emotional stress and they understood?
No, I was punished for it. I received an Article 15, and pretty much scrubbed toilets for about a month, and wasn't allowed to leave my barracks, and.
And how much longer did you stay in the Army after that April? It was April 22nd, 2004, when he was killed.
I was in for another year, so I did another deployment after that deployment to Afghanistan.
And then what have you been doing since? I understand you named your son Pat in honor of Pat Tillman.
My son, we named my son Maverick Patrick Baer. He's since passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
But I'm going to film school now. I've got another little boy, Griffin, and another little girl on the way. I've gotten married. So, living life.
And what is, when you look at this, I mean, the movie makes people angry, I think. You can say we had lies about why we went to war to begin with the weapons of mass destruction that weren't there. They tried to create, a hero to boost the war, and we have that premise about Jessica, the young Army. Was she an officer?
No, she was enlisted. I think she was like a private.
Who they tried to also present as this heroic case, and that fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of like anything that would happen to a soldier was going to be fodder for this victory in war machine or something. And then at the end, when we have the 5 generals show up for this hearing, along with Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, and they all deny getting this P4 memo from, of all people, General McChrystal, the one who was just removed from. I mean, it just seems, like a sad episode for the military and the United States in this. You just come out of there and think, who can you trust, and what's the point? So what do you say? What are you going to say to your kids when they say, "Dad, you were in the Army. I want to go too." If they want to enlist.
Hopefully my kids are offered, a lot more than I was growing up, and that they've got options, and hopefully they're smart enough to, I don't know, be lawyers or doctors or whatever. I'll support my kids in whatever they choose to do. I think my kids will have all the facts, enough information to make a good decision. But I think there's a lot of people in the military in this world that you cannot trust, but there's a lot of people in the military that you can trust that still do hold on to those all the honored and cherished kind of values, and there's just some people who don't. And
finally, what do you think the Pat Tillman story really tells us, or should mean to us? What should people take away from this?
I think it's a good representation of a movie that gives you all the facts straight there, right in front of you. It gives you the facts, and it's very well balanced, and hopefully people can understand what happened to Pat, and they can understand how he was used, and maybe they'll look closer at things that they see, coming from the media and the military, a little bit closer now.
Thanks.